as well.
Nate, unfortunately, we've got to leave you there because the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, has just begun taking some questions.
But I've got to tell you, I'm more concerned about young Indigenous girls committing suicide. That's what concerns me more than anything else. I'm concerned about young Indigenous people being in school, and I want to thank Tony Abbott for the great work that he's been doing there about getting young Indigenous kids into school. I'm worried about the safety of Indigenous people in their communities, particularly in remote communities. Last week I was up in Cairns and I met with a nurse who was working in Arakoon. I met with some teachers who were down from the remote communities, and I had a good chat with them at the pub. And they're very aware of what's happening in those communities. I've got a pretty practical focus on these things. I want to see Indigenous families in jobs. I want to see Indigenous kids safe. And I want to see them in school because that's what gives them a bright future. And we've got so much to do here. And so it's those practical things that matter most to me when it comes to Indigenous Australians.
Your voice to Parliament address some of the issues you've just listed.
Well,
isn't that the merit that you're looking for?
What addresses it is kids actually being in school. What it actually is assisted by that is ensure that there's law and order in these communities. What actually assists it is if a young girl has been abused and she has no one to tell and she commits suicide, fixing that is what matters, and that's what I'm focused on.
That voice assist in some way?
Well, that would have to be demonstrated.
So do you see merit in your voice to
I will make the response to the Joint Select Committee report, which addresses that matter when we're in a position to do so, which is not too long from now.
Prime Minister, on the Julia Banks issue,
Sorry?
The Julia Banks' decision to run as an independent field, so how concerned are you about that?
Greg Hunt has worked like a Trojan for his community from the day he was elected in the seat of Flinders, and people in their communities back people who've worked for their communities, worked in their communities, like Ross, who has been elected and re-elected time and again, like Peter Dutton, who's been elected and re-elected time and again, like Luke Howarth, who's been re-elected at the last election, and I believe will be again, because they are there and they've done the work. And I have no doubt that Greg Hunt will be rewarded by his electorate, will be acknowledged by his electorate for the incredible work that he's done. I mean, one of the things Greg has done in his electorate is he has championed the fight for resources and support of families with autism. He has traversed his electorate annually, because he's often had to miss cabinet meetings to do it, raising funds for autism. When I was Social Services Minister, he ensured that we put more money into autism in the programs, particularly in his electorate. This is the Health Minister who is delivering record PBS listings, record levels of bulk billing in this country, record levels of funding for hospitals. That's what I call a record of achievement. And more importantly than that, he's got a huge heart, which is informing his plans, our plans, for the future of healthcare in this country. So, I think Greg's record is the best answer to that question.
What do you think is going on with this rush of ex-Liberal independents? Do you think there's some sort of coordinated...
A rush?
Yeah. Well, okay, so we've got...
One person has decided to stand who was in the Liberal Party, and this is apparently a rush.
Well, the people who've already been in the Liberal Party include Rebecca Sharp. They include...
That was years ago.
No. And
that was years ago.
Mr. Yates. What I'm asking you is, do you make anything of this series of announcements over the past few months?
No.
Dan, the latest round of AEC disclosures are going to be released tomorrow. I appreciate you made some reforms last year about foreign donations.
Yes.
Do you think the domestic donation system needs reform, and do you specifically support a system that's in place in other countries and in a lot of states in the country where there's a cap on donations in exchange for a higher level of public funding for campaigns?
Yeah, well, look, we go through this process after every election, and we've taken through a series of reforms to election funding and donation laws following the last election. That's what we've taken through the Parliament, and there's a bit further to go on that when we're sitting again. So we've been taking action on that. We'll continue to take action on that. I think these things are best done in a bipartisan way through the Parliament, and that's always the approach I've taken. But do you know what? I think Australians are more interested in 1.25 million jobs being created. I think they're more interested in congestion-busting infrastructure in their communities where you're addressing intersections that have cost Australians lives. I think they're more interested in the fact that bulk billing is at record levels under the investments that we've made. Because, the only way you can guarantee Medicare is to have a stronger economy. And if you can't do that, you can't guarantee Medicare. That's why I can guarantee Medicare.
Prime Minister,
You're announcing upgrades to a local intersection. Why are we standing up?
Because a bunch of Labor protesters and union thugs wanted to shout us down.
Prime Minister,
You don't know that.
That's not debate. That's just the Labor Party trying to shout at the clouds. I think Australians want to hear what we've got to say, not to have people coming and shouting over the top of press conferences in a rather juvenile way. I don't mind. I don't know.
Changing locations every time is not going to work in Queensland.
I have been to so many places where I've turned up, and of course the unions have been there shouting aggressively, pointing fingers, shaking their fists and doing all that. It's part of Labor's tactics. Bill Shorten might want to put up with that, but I'm not going to put up with the unions carrying on like that. Their union members are actually at work. They're at work today. They're working hard, and their union fees and union dues are paying for others to run around and shout at press conferences. I don't know, but I don't think they're not going to be paid to do so.
To people in a democracy for you to call them thugs when they're party members turning out to support their local candidate?
I'm talking about union members, and I've dealt with a lot of them who've turned up at a lot of my events shouting and screaming and carrying on. I don't think that's a civilised way to carry on debate. I've dealt with plenty of protesters in my time, and we'll make our announcements in the places we want to make them, and we'll do it so that people in the community can hear clearly what it is we're doing for them. And this is about them. It's not about that sort of noise. It's about having the opportunity to talk directly to Australians, which is what we're doing here, and paying them that respect and ensuring they have the opportunity to understand what's in front of them.
Franking credits.
Yeah, franking credits. Yeah, thanks, Bevan.
Bowen. Can you imagine Bill Shorten repeating Chris Bowen's line that he's happy for people to vote against them if they oppose the policy? And are you happy for people to vote against you if they don't agree with your policies? Isn't that democracy?
Well, I think what Chris Bowen did yesterday was arrogant. And, Bill Shorten, I understand he's heading to Queensland today. What he should do is he should go and talk to those retirees who are turning up at the House committee today. Talk to them, listen to them. That's what he should do. We'll see if he does. I don't know if he will or not. But what I do know is Bill Shorten is going to rip $5 billion a year out of the pockets of retirees, and more than just retirees. That includes pensioners, by the way. Pensioners are not immune from this. Don't believe the lies that say that pensioners are immune from it. And pensioners are hit by this as well. Small business owners are hit by this pernicious tax as well. It's not reform, it's a raid. It's a raid on people's savings and investments. It's a raid that will actually cost our economy. It will cost jobs. Labor can't create 1.25 million jobs because they want to put $200 billion of higher taxes on the economy. That is going to make our economy weaker. That is going to weaken the ability of Australia to pay for Medicare, to pay for hospitals, to pay for schools. Higher taxes is not the answer. The answer is backing the small and family and medium-sized businesses and hard-working Australians all around the economy to make our economy stronger. So it's great to be here in Brisbane today. I appreciate the opportunity to have taken your questions, but particularly here to be here with Ross and Adrian and Amanda. We're delivering for Queensland. We're going to keep delivering for Queensland because our plan for a stronger economy means that Australians here in Queensland will be able to get home sooner and get home safely. Thanks very much.
Prime Minister, well done.
Thanks, Ross.
Okay, so that was live from Brisbane. The Prime Minister Scott Morrison holding a media conference there. The Prime Minister commenting on this news this morning that Julia Banks, a former Liberal MP, will be contesting the seat of Flinders as an independent. Health Minister Greg Hunt is the sitting member. Mr Morrison says he's very confident that Greg Hunt will hold on to that seat.